Hello and welcome to the Unit 5 lessons for Scratch. This is for the Computer Science 112 class, and if you want to follow along, you are more than welcome to. So today we're going to be talking about Lesson 5.1, adding sliders. And what we're going to be doing is kind of creating sliders because those are really well utilized whenever we start talking about NetLogo. It uses a ton of sliders in NetLogo, so it's really important for us to start to kind of have this interaction with them. It's also very big for using in a user interface, a UI for short. So we're going to talk about those. All right. So first thing we're going to talk about, we've talked about it before, is the variables. And so we have a couple of different types of variables. We have a constant, and this is something that remains constant. It's something that never changes. It's going to stay the same regardless of what's happening. These are things that I kind of refer to as being hard-coded. It might not truly be that phrase, but it's kind of something that I just kind of think of whenever I think of this, in that it's something that we're able to just kind of expect to always be there. It's something that shouldn't be changed, and something that a user isn't going to be changing. It's something that the programmer or similar like that is going to provide. The next is a variable, and a variable is a value that can be changed. It can vary. Now, in programming, that's kind of this constant and variable is kind of like they get mixed together, because you can have a constant which has a variable name, but it's going to remain constant. And then you have a variable which is actually a variable because it can actually change. So in our last lesson, we looked at kind of setting these and incrementing variables and kind of making them change as we're going along. Sliders we use in programs to dynamically change variables. So we're not setting them ahead of time. We'll set them ahead of time, but the user is going to be able to change things as the program is running. And sliders are used extensively, like I said, in NetLogo for any modeling type purposes. Very, very widely used. So to convert a variable to a slider, so if you have your Scratch open, you right click on the variable display. So let me just, oops, I didn't mean to show you guys that. Let's do it like this. There we go. I was supposed to do it. Maybe it didn't. Let's see here. Let me double check this property. Yes. No, I wanted to have this. There we go. All right. So we have this variable, or this, and we're going to create a new variable. So right here, we're going to go make a variable. Why not? Let's just say test. Why not? And this is for all sprites. Okay. And from this, we actually are able to figure out that, that's a weird layout that has going on. We're able to figure out that this is, this exists right here. We're kind of used to this. Now, to make it a slider, we can right click on it and go to the thing that says slider. And then from there, we can actually even right click it again and change the slider range. And so you can provide a minimum and a maximum value, a minimum being the smallest value and a maximum being the largest value. So we can definitely go ahead and mess around with that. We can say, hey, let's just set this to 50, and now it's going to go only up to 50. Now, let's just say, for example, that I set this to 50. Let's see what happens if I've set it to 50, but then I'm going to change it to 25. It still says it's at 50, but as soon as I kind of click on it and move it a little bit, it's going to update that. So just kind of be aware of that whenever you're first starting to kind of play around with these sliders. All right, you can actually even, I believe, go in the negative direction. So negative 25, and so in the middle we got 0. If I get to 0, then all the way up to the left we have negative 25. All right, so let's jump back to our little slide PowerPoint. Here we go. All right, so we did all that, yada, yada, yada. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and make two sliders. And we're going to have one called rate, and it's going to go from 0 to 25, and time, which is going to go from 0 to 20. And then set up this code where we kind of do this distance time, or distance equals rate times time. We're not going to actually be setting up, making this distance equals. We're going to say your distance will be the rate times the time. All right, so let's jump to that. So right here, I'm going to make a variable called rate. I'm going to make another variable called time. And I'm going to go ahead and actually go and delete test just so I don't get it mixed up, and I'm going to delete my variable. You can do that. All right, so let's go ahead and set rate. Oops, no, we didn't want to do that. I'll tell you why here in a second. So I'm going to make rate a slider, and as I said, we're going to go from 0. Oops. Oh my gosh. If you ever do that where you actually make it disappear, if you come on this left-hand side that has this little like checkbox next to it, go ahead and click that, and it should bring it right back for you. So I'm going to change the slider values from 0 to 25, and then I'm going to change the time to 0 to 20. Make it a slider. Change the slider values from 0 to 20. All right, cool. So now I can move this around, and it's going to make things happen. So let's go ahead and go grab our blocks. So I'm going to start with when the green flag is clicked. I want it to say for 2 seconds. And we got to use these operator systems because we're going to do distance times time. And that's this little tiny star right here. This is the times. So I'm going to take that right there, grab my variables, and go rate times time. Now this is just going to give us a number. I don't quite want that. So I want to go back to operators, and I want to grab that join button. So I'm going to take that, grab all these, put it where a banana is, and say the distance is... And if you really wanted to, you could add another join on there and like provide a distance unit measurement, like meters, kilometers, feet, yards, that type of stuff. But we're just going to stick with this. So let's give it a rate of 5 and a time of 8. And if I push the play button, Scratch says that the distance is 40. And then if I change this to 16, Scratch says that the distance is 128. And so, yeah, we'd want to kind of possibly jump into this. And if we really wanted to make this in-depth and kind of more of a physics calculator, we'd want to provide the units that we're working in. So we're working in meters or feet or those types of things. All right, so hopefully we're all happy with how that worked. All right, go ahead and try the following examples. So try doing a rate of 12 and a time of 4. Your distance should be 48. Go ahead and do that. I'll actually go and do it with you guys. So I'm going to do a rate of 12, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and a time of 4. 4. I'm going to hit play. Distance is 48. Awesome. Okay, that works. Let's go ahead and do a rate of 6 and a time of 20. All right, rate of 6, time of 20. Rate of 6 and a time of 20. And play. The distance is 120. Awesome. Perfect. All right, so let's switch it back. Let's see, example 3. A rate of 9 and a time of 11. All right, so let's go do that. Rate of 9 and a time of 11. And I get 99. Awesome. All right, that's everything that I wanted. I realized why that's looking weird for you guys. I'll figure that out in the next video series. All right. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to take this idea of incrementing variables and we're going to make it something that works. So we're going to do a pinwheel, and it's going to be drawn by triangles of progressively larger size. And if you're wondering what's a pinwheel, it's those little like kind of spinny wheelie bobs that you can get like a carnival and stuff like that. You blow on it and it just spins around. It's super cool, super fun, super awesome. All right, so the pins are drawn from one size triangle. We're going to repeat the same triangle, but we're just going to increase the side. That's what I just said right there. And so this is going to continue for the number of levels that we choose. We can choose how many different levels we're going to do. And we're going to let the user actually define how many levels they want to do. So we need to initialize our triangle code from the spiderweb program. So kind of using that same idea that we had from the spiderweb. And we're going to start with drawing one level of the pinwheels with 4 pins. 4. Then we're going to rotate the triangle 360 degrees divided by 4. And that's going to give us 90 degrees. Now, I kind of don't want to do that math on my own. I want Scratch to do that for me. So let's go ahead and build this code. All right. Let's jump to it. I wonder if I can make this like truly full screen. I don't think I can. It's all right. Let's see here. Yeah, I can do that. There we go. Looks a little better for you guys. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just delete these. If I go into variables, I can delete these guys, delete rate, delete time, because we don't need them anymore. Let's go ahead and build our program. All right. So as we always do, we're going to make a block called initialize. Initialize. We're going to click OK, and it's going to ask us to define what initialize is. We'll kind of figure that out as we go probably, but the first one I'm probably going to go with is go to x0, y0. All right, cool. I know we're going to be drawing, so let's go grab a pen too. So we're going to click those bacon strips in the bottom left, click on pen, and we got ourselves a pen. Anytime that we're initializing, we're going to erase everything because we don't want it to show up. All right, so we'll figure out what else we need to initialize as we kind of go along. So let's see, let's go ahead and make another block called triangle. All right, and we're going to have one parameter called side. And I like to bring my parameters or my procedures over here just because that way they're kind of off to the side. I like to think of this as like my active code area. So I know a triangle is I have to do it 3 times. 3. And I'm going to move some amount of steps. Now remember, we want to use this parameter and drop it right in here into the move section. Then I want to turn, and you can choose left or right. I'm going to go ahead and choose right. And remember, this is a little weird. We're going to turn 120, and that's weird because of that whole, like, the triangle is 180 degrees, but we're going 120 on the first bout, and that's because of it's kind of what's on the outside. All right, so we're going to turn 120 degrees, and we're going to repeat this 3 times, and that's going to make our triangle. Awesome. All right, so we have an initialize and a triangle. Let's go ahead and build a events when the green flag is clicked. I want to go ahead and grab my initialize block and my triangle block. And I noticed right here that I turned. So let's go ahead and do a point and direction block just to make sure that we're always pointed in the same direction. We're going to choose 90. Okay, let's go ahead and let's see here. Ooh, we can put our pen down. Once we've done this, let's set our colors. Why not? And set our pen size. Let's make it 2 so it's a little bit kind of thicker. All right. And we really, like, you know, Scratch is nice and everything, but let's go ahead and hide Scratch too while we're doing this. All right. So right now, let's draw a triangle that is, let's just choose a big number and say 50. So we click that. Hey, sweet, we got ourselves a triangle. All right. Now, we talked about how we wanted this to be a pinwheel. And a pinwheel, we're going to have 4 going all the way around. So I need to repeat this 4 times. Now, the thing that I have to think about is, okay, I'm going to make a triangle. Let's just keep it with 50 because that's easier. Or we could switch it to 60 because that way it's kind of divisible by more numbers, really. Just slightly bigger. But I want to make it so it goes kind of all around my space. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go and grab a turn function and throw it right in here. Now we want it to do in the whole entire circle, but we want to do some of the math. We want to let Scratch do some of the math. So let's put a turn in here, and we're going to go 360 divided by 4. And you'll start to see why we did this here in a little while. Hey, look at that. We got our 4 like triangles, and they're starting to make this pinwheel function. Awesome, cool. All right, so yeah, you should see this code. So let's go ahead and move to let's go ahead and move on to our pins procedure. And it's going to look a little bit like this. We're going to clean up the code by drawing some pins, and we're going to take something that receives the number of pins and the side length, and it's going to start kind of creating this for us. Now, we've talked about it before on how we don't want to we want to keep everything the same whenever we make these new procedures. That way we don't have to worry about it. And like we can know that, yeah, it's performing like we expected. So let's go ahead and make a block. And this block, we're going to go ahead and call draw pins, because we're going to be, well, you guessed it, draw pins. All right, we're going to add an input. We're going to add an input called number, because this is the number of pins that we're going to have, and then we're going to have length. And this is going to have the number, this is going to have how big we want it to be. We're going to click OK. Now we talked about how this is basically just a part of this. So I'm going to take this and put this right here. Number was the number of pins. How many pins do we draw? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to put in 4. My length, well, I know which one I wanted to be my length, and that was this 60. Now, kind of an interesting little side note here is I put in triangle as this parameter length, and then in triangle, I have this parameter side. So it's like a parameter that's going into parameter, and that's totally fine, and that's totally valid, and you might have that happen, and that's totally cool. All right, so we need to set some values, because right now it actually will do nothing except for clear the screen. And why did it do that? Actually, there's a little tiny dot right there, and that's not a mistake on your screen. No, that little tiny dot is specifically so because that's where we put the pen down. So you gotta think about this. All right, so let's go and find this draw pins. And actually, let's make a couple variables. Let's make a variable called number of pins. So number of pins. And we're going to make another variable called side length. Okay. And we're going to set the number of pins. And we're going to set the side length. So let's make this 4. And we did 60 as our side length. Still not going to draw anything because we didn't put it into draw pins. So we need to put the number of pins and then the side length. Now if we draw it, hopefully if we did everything correctly, it's going to draw that same shape that we had earlier. Hey, there we go. Awesome. All right, let's jump back to this. So test it. Did it make the first level? If yes, continue on. If no, keep going. Or go kind of pause this and go and finish it, and then you can catch up with us. All right, so we got the same shape once again. So before we start adding more shapes, we should probably try to start kind of optimizing some stuff. And what I mean by that is we're kind of going to make this draw pins, and we're going to try and start removing some of the variables from inside of this green when the green flag is clicked. So let's go ahead and jump to that. So, and these are things that we wouldn't necessarily be changing. Let's call it Pinwheel. Pinwheel. We're going to have an input, and that's going to be the number of pins again. Num pins. And okay. So right here. Put this inside of here, and we're going to put I'm just making sure that I was doing that right. Instead of number pins like this, we're going to put num pins. And inside of here, oops, set the side length like so. And then we want to run Pinwheel, which has number pins. All right. So go ahead and test that, and we should once again get our scratch system. All right, let's look. Yep, still the same. Awesome, perfect, that's what we want. All right, so let's go ahead and make 2 more levels of pins. So let's make them so they get even bigger. So right here, it's only making one version of it, so let's go ahead and make another bigger one. So we're actually going to have 2 of these, but let's change side length by 20, because that's enough where we'll see a change. And then we're going to draw pins again. And it's going to use num pins, and then it's going to use side length. And if I push play, makes 2 levels. Awesome. All right, go ahead and test it, and you should get what I got right there. All right. Now, this seems nice, but is there something that we could do to kind of make this more efficient, if you will? And when I look at it, I say yes, there is. So let's take this side length and set it to 0. And this one's going to change our program or change our look just a little bit. And we should recognize that and say, hey, this is going to change our program, like what our program looks like a little bit. That's okay. And the reason why is because we're going to be starting actually at 0, then going to 20, then 40, then 60. And I want to say, I started to repeat myself right here. So let's go ahead and take this and delete it. So I'm going to go over to Control. I'm going to grab a repeat. I'm going to put it all the way up to drop pins. Now, what this is going to do is we're going to, let's see here. Let's just start with let's make it 3. And yeah, change it by 20. And hey, there we go. So it started to change a little bit. And it actually is kind of, it's drawing out. And so if I go 4, and actually, I guess for some of you, you're confused because it only drew 1, 2. It actually drew a third one in the middle there. You could start this by kind of going with like 20 if you wanted to. You could also alternatively, leaving that as 0, so it always starts at 0, change the side length by 20. That's kind of up to you on how you want to do this. So if I do it this way, we can see that it actually does draw 3. So we can leave it like this, that's fine. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to kind of create some more things, test the code. So what I want to do is I want to use a slider for the number of pins. Now, let's try something real quick. So go ahead and right here, change this to slider, and try changing the number of pins to 44, sure, and hit play. Well, what happens? It automatically went to 4. Now the question is why? Why did it go all the way to 4? And that's because it initialized the program, it started off fine, and then we tell it set number of pins to be 4. Okay, so how can we kind of get around that? And what we need to do is we need to remove the set number pins to 4. So if we get rid of this, and I don't want there to be 44 options, let's make this, they can only do up to 10. Change slider range 0 to 10. And actually, we're going to say that they have to have at least 1 in order to make the drawing. Okay. All right, so let's see what that does. Alrighty. Okay, so your challenge for this assignment is going to be for you to figure out how to, I'll jump to the assignment page, use the code that we just developed to make it so that we have the number of pins going from 1 to 10, at least 6 levels, change the size of the side length to make a nice pinwheel, make it so it changes color for each level, and make sure that you include your comments in this. It's kind of stretch goals is set things so that people can change more and more aspects of this. See what you can do with this, and so kind of just have a little fun with it. All right. Hope you had a good one. Happy programming.